Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. I am Bill McMinn. Along with me is my dear friend Steve Sargent from the Hiawatha Church of God in Christ.
Yes, sir.
Man, I haven't even said that in a little while, and I got it now. And Mark just said you look beautiful, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do like the coat, and I was telling you that before.
Yes.
I like your coat. And you got like a black shirt, black coat. It's looking sharp, man. Dapper. Dapper even. Stylish.
Thank you. I try to be contemporary a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's a good
right.
thing. Right. And we won't get canceled for that. I want to talk about cancel culture a little bit because I think that's a big deal. And I had to look up the definition because you've heard the term, right? I mean, we hear it all the time. So, and they've canceled TV shows. They've canceled, it could be, I remember a long time ago, they fired one guy from ESPN because they said some guy had a chink in his armor. And they accused him of being racist because a chink was a derogatory term for the Chinese. And so he just used the common term, chink in your armor, and they got rid of him for it. And I thought, and that was, several years ago that happened. It has not gotten better. Wow. I mean, it's actually getting worse. But anyway, cancel culture by definition, modern form of ostracism in which somebody is thrust out of a social or professional circle, whether it be online or social media or in person. Those who are subject to this criticism are said to be canceled. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines it as to cancel, as used in this context, means to stop giving support to that person. In pop culture, it means withdrawing support, canceling public figures and companies after they have done or said something considered objectionable or offensive. The expression cancel culture has mostly negative connotation and is commonly used in debates on free speech and censorship. So it's basically boycotting, ostracizing, whether it's a company that does something that you don't want it to do. And you wonder who like the we is, like who is in control of what gets canceled, because it seems like what's getting canceled is more common sense approaches. Anyone who's standing up for, let's say, what I would think is the truth and, your normal values, they would tend to get more canceled.
Yeah,
than someone a little more radical.
You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Well, Dr. Seuss, come on.
Now,
what do you think about Dr. Seuss?
Now, I'm going to tell you, I didn't grow up on it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's weird or not, but I didn't grow up on it. My only encounter with Dr. Seuss was actually reading to some, kids.
Right.
And so I really don't know a lot about him. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I don't know a lot about him.
But you never, was this like a thing, like in the black community, that Dr. Seuss was racist?
No, I never looked at it like that. I wasn't really exposed to Dr. Seuss.
Right.
I didn't. My real dealings was as an adult, reading to kids.
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Seuss is amazing. I mean, he's got some funky ways of looking at things. I mean, all the crazy pictures and Cat in the Hat and Thing 1 and Thing 2. And I've not read every one of his books.
I think you have, just from talking to you.
Green Eggs and Ham. And, all the places you'll go and Pup Is Up and, the more common ones, but he wrote a lot of them. So like the 6 they canceled, I'd never even heard of them anyway.
Now, why did they cancel them?
Because they say there's racist undertones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's getting canceled. Like the Virginia School District said they banned him, then they backed it off and said, well, we're not banning him totally. Dr. Seuss is like one of the main children's authors in America. I mean, it's super popular. I mean, that's where The Grinch Who Stole Christmas came from.
Oh,
The Grinch is Dr. Seuss.
There you go. Right. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Right. All right. I see the familiarity there.
Yeah. So, right. That's, who
well, if he stole Christmas now, there's something wrong with that guy.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe we should have said something. But, even on his birthday, like they wouldn't, like the White House wouldn't mention him or say anything. I guess usually presidents do on his birthday. They wouldn't mention him because it's, he's getting canceled. I guess that's a big thing. And then Mr. Potato Head. He's too gender specific, I guess. Because there can't be a Mr. I guess can't be any more Misters.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, what are you supposed to take from that? There can't be a Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head. Like that's not going to be a normal thing anymore. Like that's going to offend somebody. Am I going to not be allowed?
Well, I don't know. We're so many things. I guess somebody's going to be offended over. I don't care which way you go. I don't think we should just augment everything we do because somebody's offended by it. There's no way around that.
It comes down to a mob mentality, and the very vocal mob can be an extremely small part of your population. And it's not that we're trying to make anyone feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
But my goodness, I mean, they've been picking on Christians for years. So I mean, I'm just kind of used to it, and I don't really think a thing about it. I don't need you to validate me and what my faith is. So if why do we have to validate everyone and what their, beliefs are, and especially when those beliefs are really like oddball stuff? Like, I don't feel like I should have to validate it. Like, if you want to be a cross-dresser, I don't think I should be canceled because I said I think it's weird.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't mean I wouldn't love you. I would just say.
Are you trying to say I wouldn't look?
No, listen, you as a bearded lady would look awesome. Okay. I'm saying now.
My father, I guess this would probably be nowadays, I don't know, canceled, but just because my dad could do practical jokes.
Right.
And he came downstairs one day when we were kids dressed in my mother's dress.
Right.
With one of her hats on.
Right.
Of course, we got a big kick out of it and stuff.
He'd be a hero today.
Yeah, but I don't know if we've lost maybe focus on some things and try to make, I want to say things that aren't important, because in somebody's life, I guess that is important, but to keep the main thing the main thing.
Right.
You know, people, I was always raised to respect people, and you called someone Mr.
Right.
Especially a teacher. When you get in trouble if you call a teacher Judy, if her name was Judy, just call her Judy. It was Miss whatever her name is, or Mr. whatever her name is. That's the way I was raised to address people.
No,
and as a kid, we could never call an adult by their first name.
Right.
It was always Mr. or Mrs.
Well, this is the world we live in right now. Remember Pat on Saturday Night Live?
Loved it.
Okay, right.
Loved it.
And you never could figure out if Pat was a boy or a girl. And they would you'd laugh. I mean, that was a skit, a mockery. We are turning our country more into that. Yeah. Like, we want more Pats, apparently, because we want more of it, and we're asking for more of it. And so now, and I'm going to say, one of my suggestions in our society of cancel culture is, man, please stop being so uptight. Like, everyone's got to live and let live. Stop being so uptight about everything, arguing everything, canceling everything. I mean, that would be my thing. Like, you had recently the Mandalorian star, Gina Carano, if I said her name right. She gets canceled by Lucasfilms for her offensive social media post. And here it is. All right, quoting. Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children, because history is edited. Most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? And she got fired from her job for that statement.
Wow.
All right, what do you think of that statement?
What did she do? What's her job? I apologize.
Oh, she was like a star in Mandalorian, which is
okay.
I don't know.
Is it a movie or?
No, Star Wars.
Oh.
It's a Star Wars spin-off show.
Okay.
You ever see Baby Yoda?
Yes.
Baby Yoda comes from Mandalorian.
Okay. All right. Thank you for educating me.
Okay. So that's where. So she was a whatever. I forget what her role was in the thing. I've only watched one season. I forget. I didn't remember too much about it, obviously. I mean, it was an interesting show and stuff like that. But yeah, she's not a bootlegger, but smuggler, I think is what it is. But anyway, but that's not a problem to have someone doing that stuff on your show. But having this, and so I looked at it, and honest to goodness, I wasn't sure what was like so offensive about it, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, you can't compare the media or whatever to Nazis per se. I mean, maybe somebody got offended by that, or we can't compare somebody ripping on us for our beliefs to what the Jews went through in the Holocaust.
Oh, right.
I think that, and I would agree with that, but I think that what she's saying is we're getting there. The same thinking that led to hating Jewish people, which led to their ultimately, to genocide of 6 million Jewish people in Germany. Right. The same type of thinking is the thinking that she feels like she's seeing now, where you're ripping on people because of the way they voted or because they're conservative. You're labeling them as domestic terrorists, as racist, as supremacists, especially as a white guy, a white conservative. I hear this all constantly, in the press, and these terms thrown around. That's alarming to me, because what I'm afraid of, Steve, to be honest with you, is that when I walk into a black community, that they're already going to see me as an enemy when I don't view myself that way. I'm not their enemy. We're fellow Americans. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm not racist. So I look at those kind of things and say, yeah, but you're making me an enemy of these people when I don't feel I am, by sticking a label to me that I think is very unfair. And I think that's what she's responding to say, how is it different from hating people for their political views? And I would agree. I don't think we should hate people for their political views.
I agree too. I wish that we would look at people more like being people and not what political view we have, because we have, even within the same political spectrum or family, you have people with different views.
Right.
It's not, I try to tell people, I don't believe that the average person is like what we see on television. I'm talking about like Washington.
Right.
Because they're almost like actors and actresses. they have a certain audience to cater to, and they need to say certain things, whether they believe it or not, or really feel that way or not.
Right.
They need to come off, on that side or against whatever for their own neck,
right?
To get reelected or to get whatever support back home, those type of things. God only knows how some of them actually really feel themselves when it comes down to certain things. We don't know.
Yeah, I just think that when you're getting so concerned and you're so whacked out because somebody might be offended by Mr. Potato Head, and you forget that it's okay that there's boys and girls. I mean, that's normal. I mean, I fear we're going to get to a certain day where you're not even allowed to call the boys football team. Well, it's not really a boys football team. The boys play football, but let's say boys soccer, girls soccer.
Yeah.
Because they play this, or boys cross country, girls cross country. That you're not going to be allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can see
what I'm
that.
saying? Because I don't know how you're going to identify it, but if you're not allowed to use these words, like you're not allowed to use the word uncle and aunt, so you're not even allowed to use the word mom and dad in some of these circles. So you would have to say my parent's sibling, which if you have to always say instead of identifying on my dad's side, my brother's, that's what I'm talking about. So I really have no idea in this. If you have 10, uncles and aunts, I have no idea which one it is because you can only say my parent's sibling. This is where we're getting
sibling
to.
number 407.
Yeah, exactly.
Give them numbers.
Give them a number. Yeah, and that'll make us feel good too. So I think it's just getting dangerous when we're so uptight about these things and we're canceling because you don't agree. And even if there's a clear thing where somebody says something disagreeable, to make them cancel because of that sets up the stage for you to be canceled at your church because you said you believe in the traditional view of marriage between a man and a woman. That you might get knocked off a YouTube platform, that you may not be allowed on Facebook because you didn't agree with them and you're going to get canceled. Because that's where this is ultimately heading. Well, it's going to affect us. So like if for us talking on this podcast today, they get wind of this, that we're arguing and we're bucking. Oh, no. You can't say anything against them. Hasbro changing Mr. Potato Head. You can't say anything about these things or give a different viewpoint because there's only one viewpoint. I think it's extremely dangerous.
Did you ever own a Mr. Potato Head?
I think so, as a kid.
I never did.
Yeah.
But sometimes we get carried away, and groups get carried away sometimes with what they believe. And obviously people are entitled to their own opinions.
Right.
We're in a free country. We're allowed to do that. I don't think that I know when it comes down to race, like in racial tones and things that are offensive in race. And there are some traditional words, phrases that are used that would be offensive in the African American community.
Right.
I think a lot of people are aware of that. And there might be some other things that the average person doesn't know that might offend me, but it may not offend a lot of other African Americans.
Right.
We can't fix all of that. But
Right.
the things we know and history has shown us, this is offensive, it's derogatory, etc. We should abide by those when we're in the public sector.
But let's say there's somebody like me who's, maybe we've been, living our own lives. Perhaps, if I was younger, the Confederate flag is across the board offensive to the black community. I've never flown it because I saw it as a Southern thing. I saw it as a rebel thing. I was never interested in the Confederate flag, not one day in my life.
Right.
I'm a Northerner, and maybe that's part of it. But let's say for some reason that when you told me that was a racist thing, I didn't know it was a racist thing. I thought it was just a redneck thing. You know what I mean? To me, it was just redneck. It wasn't racist. So you tell me it's racist, and ever since then, I've accepted that. But let's say that I don't know, and I put this at the end of my drive for whatever reason, and now I'm canceled, and they don't, I can't be on YouTube anymore, and they take away my Twitter account, and they cancel me, and I'm like, but I didn't know. Why not just correct me and talk to me about it?
Sure.
Instead of just cancel me.
Right. I think, exactly. People deserve a chance.
Right.
And I don't think that everybody that has a Confederate flag is a racist. That's not what I want to, try to make people believe. But the flag itself.
It depends on what state they're flying in, maybe.
Well, I'm glad it's not the state flag in Mississippi anymore. I know that.
Yeah,
I was having a good time down there until I pull into a Walmart, and that's the first thing you see up top.
Really?
Yeah, I was just, because I saw things in Mississippi the last time I was there that I'd never seen in my life.
Right.
I saw interracial couples, and I say couples like maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, and families doing things together I had never seen before. I'm telling you, I'm not saying it didn't happen.
So that's good, right?
Yeah, I was feeling good, and then we go pull into the store and like, bam, there it
Right.
was. And there's such a bad history behind it. It's
Right.
so offensive to most people like me. Just the flag itself, not whether or not that person intends to offend.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. And I didn't like it anyway.
Yeah.
You gave me another reason not to like it, a truer reason not to like it, actually. So, and I go with that and I abide by that. And it would offend me. Like if I saw someone flying or standing behind it, I would think, I would not think highly, but I don't think I would say you have no right to speak or your post should be canceled on Facebook. I don't think that's where I think we're getting so uptight. This woman got constantly berated, this Gina Carano, because she wouldn't put pronouns in her Twitter bio. And they told her she needs to to be sensitive to transgender, to be sensitive to people who don't know what gender they are. And there's so many genders out there right now. Not from my thinking, I think there's boys and girls. I think God made male and female. I mean, that's where I'm going to stand on the word of God. But there are other people who don't feel that way. So she's looking at it and they're saying, well, you need to put your personal pronouns in there so that you make these other people feel better, so on and so forth. Well, I don't want to. And she said they were endlessly bugging her about it. So she put up a tweet finally. She said, I think they would get further if they didn't basically have such combative people representing them. And she didn't like it. And she goes, and she had another tweet. Listen, somebody explained it to me. It's great if you want to do that. I just don't want to do it. My point is, why does she have to do it? This is on the list of how offensive she's been. She wouldn't put personal pronouns. That would be like saying if you have a Twitter account, you didn't put he, him on down there. That's offensive. My attitude is, and you don't have to.
It's your account.
It's your
That's
account.
right. Yeah.
This is where we're starting to lose freedom in this country, where no, you will do what we want you to do. You will say what we want you to say. If we want you putting personal pronouns, you will do it because you've got to make every person
Everybody happy.
who's ultra sensitive, feel comfortable. Where I don't know that I feel my role is to make everybody who's ultra sensitive feel comfortable. I think that I need to speak the truth. You don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with you. What I have to do is be respectful and kind and loving. That's what I'll do. But I don't have to say what you want me to say. I think that's censorship. I think that is cancel culture. It's dangerous.
So, who reprimanded her for it? Was it like her job or?
Yeah, there were people giving her a hard time. She goes, people have endlessly given me a hard time for not putting pronouns on, constantly writing to her about it. She got fired from Disney for putting up the comments about what's the difference between what they did in Germany. And the thing is, before I even read that story, I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah. I was thinking, what's the difference between what they're doing to conservatives and what they did to the Jews in Germany? Because you're labeling a whole group of people as somehow bad, somehow as terrorists. Terrorist, a pretty strong word, Steve.
Yes,
pretty strong.
So now you know what it's like to be labeled. Now you see, right?
Exactly. I do. No, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. Welcome to the program.
Yeah. Exactly. Now this, or maybe we need that, right? I don't know. But I look at it and say, I just don't think it's fair. But I've never, in my whole life, I've never thought it was fair to characterize every Democrat as one thing, every Republican as one thing, ever. And I've never felt it was fair to attach you in your party to the most extreme radical person in your party and say, well, you believe that because they believe that.
Right.
Since I was in my 20s, I didn't think that was fair. So I'm kind of used to not doing it, but it doesn't mean they don't do it. I know I resist it because I think it's unfair, and I'm a guy who's fair. And that's one of the things that make me tick is fairness. And that's not a fair thing. Right. It's not a fair playing field.
That's unfair, right.
Yeah, it's unfair to label people. So I'm automatically not going to like it because I don't think it's a fair thing.
I agree with you. We got to look more at people for what they're worth and not, people have lives. And I know if you're in the public eye as an entertainer, what you say, even in your own, is going to be scrutinized. But I don't think a person should be badgered because they didn't do cater to every group that's out there that thinks that you shouldn't say he, him, or her, or you shouldn't write in English or however. Right. There's no way you could just live your life and please all of those groups.
Right.
You can't. It's impossible.
It's impossible. And I think for us, Steve, and one thing, we'll come back and we'll do another show on it, the second half of our show, another podcast. my thing is stop being so uptight, but you got to stand your ground too. Yeah. And we'll come back to this, but let me end the show on this. Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, perfect, and pleasing will. To me, we have to be allowed to stand our ground and not conform to the world. Mm-hmm. To me, the cancel culture is forcing you to conform to things in which you do not believe. And last I knew as an American is one of the things that I had was freedom of speech, freedom to think and believe the things that I want to think and believe.
Yes.
And I do not have to agree with you. And when you're forcing me to agree with you, and if I don't, it's some type of hate crime, and I'm going to be canceled because I'm so deeply offensive for holding to truths that have been standard for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, we're the ones that are off our rocker because we think there's two genders. I'm saying you can't conform to the world. That's what the Bible says.
That's right.
Don't conform, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And there's nothing more renewing to your mind than Scripture. Mm-hmm. And so I would say if it's not Scripture and it's not biblical, then why do we have to be there with it?
Well,
right?
Yeah, sure. You're exactly right. When we have that conviction and that call and that commitment in our lives, that's what we abide by.
Right.
That's the thing that's most important to us.
Right.
And we don't want to offend, but we don't want to offend God first.
Right.
That's first and foremost.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. I mean, I think absolutely we need to be open to other people. I mean, you and I are working together now for, it's got to be 4 or 5 years that we've been doing either radio shows together or podcasts together. And you definitely opened my mind, but you allow me to ask questions, like off the air, even to ask you questions. Hey, what about this? Or why do they do that? Like Black History Month. And I asked you, which we just came through, and I asked you about that one day, and you said it's to inspire young Black people that they can, and I'm all for that.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's great to know. And, and that helped me to understand it.
You need more blackness in your life.
I know. Absolutely. Well, they told me I need to be less white. Steve, I'm working on it. I need you in my life. That's what I need. But you have helped me, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
But once I know that, and once I understand that, oh, okay. Well, that's good. I didn't know. So now I know why they have it and what the purpose is. I'm like, okay, well, I'm all for that. I stand behind that and support it. And yeah, I've come around a little bit in my thinking on some of those topics because like you said, we got to understand people too. We got to try to understand where they're coming from.
Yep. That's right. That's very important because even when we disagree and even once we get an understanding doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree with it.
Right.
But you can see where they're coming from. I think that's very important that we get understanding with between our cultures and lifestyles and so on. And then, we can always agree to agree and agree to disagree.
Right. I think politically we can agree to disagree. I think when it comes to racism, there can't be racism. I think I would agree. And by the way, I was politically correct and I did agree with Steve on his things that he taught me. All right, you've been listening to the Way to Go podcast. We hope you have a great week. Tune in. We will carry on this conversation in the next show.